have Jim on the line?
Councillor Hugo, do we have you on the line?
As long as it's not foggy, it always worked. Wait till the wind isn't blowing. Do you know if we're good? Don't know. All right, well. Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 8:32, January the 12th, 2021, and I'm bringing the meeting to order. We have an agenda before us. We will delete 3.2, public hearing, bylaw of 1828, because we can't have it without the ability to have people attending. And we are adding 5.1.3 to reschedule that meeting. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? If Councillor Christie.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to move the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Faye, Deb? Faye or Deb? Well, I don't think they're online. Faye, Deb, can you hear me? I'm muted? Okay, Faye, Deb, can you hear me? Okay, good. We've had a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. I was calling the vote. Are you in favor or opposed? Okay, Faye's in favor, Deb's in favor. Jim, are you on the line?
Can't hear you.
Okay, well.
He's on the line. He just said he couldn't hear us.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Okay, we got to turn up the volume there, or how are we doing this? Quit mumbling.
Thanks for your vote.
If it helps, I can hear both of you.
Okay, Jim, can you hear us?
Very, very, very faint, but I can kind of hear what you're saying.
All right, I don't know if we can fix that, but I'll try to talk louder. We've had amendments to the agenda. I called the vote. The amendments were to delete 3.2, which is the public hearing, and to an addition of 5.1.3 to reschedule the public hearing.
Okay.
Yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay, so that is carried unanimously. We pre-circulated the minutes of the December 8th, 2020 meeting. Are there any errors, omissions, concerns? Councillor King.
I'd make the motion to accept the minutes of the December 8th meeting as presented.
All right, we've got a motion before us to accept the minutes as presented for the December 8th meeting. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that is carried unanimously. Okay, our first item on the agenda is a delegation, Stars Air Ambulance, Glenda Farnden. Welcome, Glenda, and anytime you are ready.
Thank you so much. It's just my pleasure to bring you your annual update, and sure wish that I could be with you in person, but we will look forward to that in the future. So, do you have the presentation up?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we'll get started then. The COVID slide. Next, please.
Getting you a bump it ahead. Maybe
Thank
not.
you.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so COVID-19, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. COVID-19 has changed all our lives. STARS is a physician-driven organization, and our number one priority is to protect and maintain unimpacted operations. STARS transport physicians are regarded as experts in the field of critical care, and the reasons why STARS was asked to participate in an international consortium to share learnings about COVID. We developed rigorous PPE and decontamination procedures along with buddy system oversight as a safeguard. We created an online portal system for our rural hospitals and the healthcare professionals for airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation procedures. These are stressful times, and we continue to see a rise in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose, and COVID-related. Approximately 13%, and it's been as high as 18% of STARS missions are suspected or confirmed COVID cases. Next, please. During these challenging times, we recognize that our municipalities are facing countless hardships, which is magnified by the fact that there are many who rely upon you for help, including STARS. STARS is experiencing a significant decrease in funding in all areas, including government. Our 10-year affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services, which provided 20% government funding, has expired. In 2019, STARS received $9.2 million from Alberta Health Services. And now, while we still await the results of the recent Alberta Health Services HEMS review, they have extended the agreement with STARS until September of this year, with a projected total of $7.2 million funding. STARS fundraising initiatives have all seen a decline. The 2020 STARS lottery did not sell out, and that reflected $1.2 million lost revenue. The calendar campaign is down by more than half. Site registration revenue is considerably less, and not surprisingly, with the uncertainty of the energy sector. With COVID-19 still looming around us, most of STARS fundraising events have all been canceled for the unforeseeable future. The STARS lottery is our single largest funding source, and so we are moving forward with the 2021 STARS lottery, which just launched 10 days ago. In its first week, we are seeing that it is outperforming predictions. We are also seeing a rise in individual contributions. So we are humbled that Albertans are continuing to stand by our side. Let's have a look on the expenditure side. We see an increase in aviation expenditures due to the demand of increasing missions. And we must still move forward with the pilot training for the new helicopters coming. Administration costs reflect a decrease, but we too suffered the heartache of having to downsize staff members across all 6 of our bases. We're truly grateful to the municipal partners like you who represent an area of support for STARS that is unwavering. You continue to be a lifeline for STARS. Next slide, please. Let's have a look at a 5-year overview of missions. Overall, 2020 reflects increasing missions across the province. These also include critical inter-facility transfers from your rural hospital and incidents where a patient from a scene call may have been delivered to the hospital by ground ambulance and now require emergency transport to tertiary care. Occasionally, STARS is also asked to assist RCMP with search and rescue, as sometimes these missions typically involve the need for emergency medical intervention. Aside from the May long weekend, which is the busiest weekend of the year for STARS, the majority of STARS missions occur during the months of September to March. So we are now again in a busier season. Next slide, please. The BK-117 Legacy Fleet has served STARS well for 35 years, but a new unified fleet will increase safety and significantly reduce costs. The H-145 is breakthrough technology. Advanced avionics will reduce crew fatigue in back-to-back missions, and the unique tail allows precise maneuverability in tight landing situations. It also has increased fuel efficiency, speed, and range, and can offer up to 30 minutes additional flight time. Currently, we have 3 of these H-145s operational in Calgary and Saskatoon, and the third one provides backup, and we have started training flights as well. We just received delivery of number 4 and 5. There is also a new 5-bladed system recently announced with increased lift and load capacities. So the number 6 and 7 will be the 5-bladed system. Expected to arrive sometime after March now due to another COVID delay. All helicopters will be identically equipped, and we look forward to the completion of the entire fleet sometime in 2022. Next slide, please. The combination of exceptional critical care expertise provided by the STARS crew, the most technologically advanced intensive care unit environment that you see here in the new H-145, and blood on board, all work together in concert with STARS transport physicians, and this results in STARS being able to provide the highest level of emergency critical care available. Next, please. Provincial and federal governments embraced the vision of a fleet of H-145s, and they provided funding for 7 of the 9 in total helicopters required. And then COVID-19 hit in the middle of our capital campaign. But we must not lose sight of the vision, as the future of Albertans depend on it. To date, $14 million has been raised from individuals, corporate, and even a few municipalities who, in addition to their operational support, pledged a fleet gift. There is also a market still remaining for the BK-117 Legacy Fleet, and it will depend on market value and the rate of the US dollar this year. Excuse me. We anticipate the sale of the previous fleet could possibly generate as much as half of the $30 million remaining. And we just recently confirmed 2 more municipal gifts. So this now brings us closer to $14 million remaining in the capital campaign. Next, please. Ultrasound is one of the most vital diagnostic tools. Previously, we have had ultrasound, but it was a bulky device and not easily transportable. This new handheld ultrasound is a game changer for trauma and heart patients. Early detection will avoid fatal outcomes. Next, please. Together, we have saved countless lives. You have continued to stand by our side, and thank you for renewing your previous pledge. So we have a pledge in place which will provide sustainability for STARS as we look to the future. STARS is being called to assist the pandemic in addition to the regular ongoing daily demands, and with much less revenue coming in. We thank you again for your continued support. The most important time is now. What we do together now as Albertans or fail to do, it will be amplified in the future, and the stakes are undeniably high. You are STAR's reason for being, and we're extremely grateful to Kneehill County for your continued support. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Glenda. Just wondering if there's any questions from council to Glenda or comments. And could we bring up, there we go, thank you. No questions? All righty, well, thank you very much for the update, Glenda. I know these are trying times, and thanks for the service that you provide to our county residents and residents of Alberta and Western Canada. With any luck, maybe we will get back to a normal sometime, and things can improve for everyone in this end of the woods here. So thank you again for the presentation, and we look forward to continuing our commitments to STARS.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again. I look forward to seeing you again in person.
Until would be great.
Absolutely. Until then, everyone, please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to, yes, Deputy Reeve McGee.
Just saying thank you.
All right, would somebody like to accept the presentation for information? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I accept
All
for
right,
presentation.
we have a
Thanks.
motion to accept for information. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is 4.1. We've got an amended RFD. So anytime you are ready, Mr. Buchert.
All right, this amended RFD is just a little updated from the original one done. There was just a miscommunication between variance reporting and actual original budgeting, so we wanted to make sure we had it right. So the background is this, is the contract crew that broke ground at Torrington gravel pit, which was approved in 2020 budget. It was noticed that there's more gravel anticipated than the original estimate. So WSP prepared a new assessment and estimation that there's an additional 600,000 tons of gravel for a total of roughly 2.2 million tons is our anticipated gravel source to come out of there. This will supply Kneehill County with about a 15-year supply of road crush annually. Annually, 135,000 ton of road crush. Currently, Kneehill County has $650,000 in the gravel reserve and $12,252,894 in the roads reserve. Administration is proposing to allocate an additional $650,000 from the gravel reserve, and an additional $600,000 will be funded through the roads reserve. The additional costs will cover extraction, overburden, stockpile, reclamation, gravel agreement fees to the adjacent Valley View Hutterite colony. The contractor WSP is willing to extract the gravel at the original, or the contractor and WSP is willing to extract the gravel at the original tender price per cubic meter, and purchase, or with the purchase agreement with the adjacent Hutterite colony for gravel rights on their land. So we've entered into that agreement with the local Hutterite colony. So a little breakdown of what that would look like. We didn't put that on there, but we're going to spend about 1.6 to 1.7 with the contractor. That's for the common excavation of the pit run material. The Valley View Hutterite colony would see around 400,000 cubic meters of material, which equates to about $700,000 of aggregate cost. We have extra fees for WSP for the extra time and testing supervision to extract that gravel at about $40,000. We entered into an agreement with Ember to help them out to get rid of that well where some of that gravel is. That was a $30,000 cost. And we had additional fish salvage, which is a requirement federally from the DFO at a cost of about $30,000, which puts us about 2.465 million, rounded up to 2.5 million. So the recommended motion, the council authorizes a budget amendment for the original amount of 5.25 to 6.5 million to the Torrington gravel pit for the purpose of extracting additional pit run. 650,000 will be funded through the gravel reserve, with an additional 600,000 funded through the roads reserve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buchert. Are there any questions for Brad from council? Councillor Christie.
I guess my question is, are we gonna crush any of that gravel this year or be the year after?
Councillor Christie, that's in this year's 2021 capital budget. So I guess when that gets approved, that would be the question. We have budgeted, I think, 700,000 in the capital costing for 2021 to crush. We want to crush about 150,000 tons, so.
Are there any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, does anyone want to make a motion? Councillor King.
So I'd make the motion that we authorize the budget amendment for now to be the original amount of the 5,250,000, and we amend that to be 6,500,000 to the Torrington gravel pit for the purpose of extracting the pit run and the additional pit run that's there. 650 of the amendment to be funded through the gravel reserve, and the additional 600,000 to be funded through the road reserve.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. We have a motion before us to amend our original numbers. Is there any discussion to that motion prior to the question? Okay, seeing as none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Yay. And that is carried unanimously. Thanks, Brad. Well, happy mining. Okay, our next agenda item is 5.1.1, Planning and Development. Statistical summary. Is our planner video conferencing in? Oh, the door is opening. Oh, welcome, Ms. Hazelton.
Good morning, Mr. Reeve, members of council. Give me my screen. Wanted to bring to you today a bit of a year in review for 2020, and in order to put it into some context, I have provided years around because I wasn't sure. We are providing some new statistical information that we haven't provided previously, and in order to kind of put it in context, we've included some back years of that statistical information as well, just so we can see whether or not COVID actually did impact how we did some of our job. So when it comes to what we've done is done a combined number for subdivision development and redesignation files for every year. And there was a 48% increase in our total numbers over last year, which was a surprise to us when we actually pulled out the statistics. We are more in keeping with 2017, which was a high year for us, but it was a fairly decent jump, so we are right up there. And then again, when it comes to our developments, we almost doubled our development permits issued last year. Our subdivisions stay pretty much the same, they give or take. We did have a jump in 2016-17 because that's when we allowed more and we had some people in the queue waiting to get that 4th and 5th parcel out. So we did have a jump there due to that, but I have a feeling now we'll stay fairly steady in that. And then redesignations too. We've had, once we added some new districts in the end of 2016, we did have that jump in 2017. And then now we're starting to level out a little bit, but we do tend to get a few of them. But it was a surprise to us with the jump in development permits that we did see. Construction costs, I just wanted to put some perspective around these. We had that huge jump in 2018, which was a grain elevator at 36.8, and then the solar project at 26.6 million, so that made that year quite a jump. That project the second project has not yet been constructed, but they, in recent conversation, are planning to start May 2021. So we will probably see that one putting some shovels in the ground. In 2019, we did see the approval of a $6.1 million industrial development, a $13 million water treatment plant, and then in 2020, we added a $16 million commercial greenhouse. So that's what's kind of driving some of those numbers there. So just to give you some perspective, although 2017 was a really high year, we had a lot more major projects following that number. Safety codes, again, were higher than we were in our high year, which was 2017. So we have seen a jump in those as well. So there was 11% increase over last year's totals and a slight increase over our previous 2017 high. And again, these numbers include building, electric, gas, plumbing, private sewage and disposal permits. Days to decision. So this is something new. We're adding to our regular statistics. We will need to be reporting this in some form to the province going forward in order to participate in the municipal stimulus program. They want to see how we've cut red tape. Our average turnaround for permitted uses is just over 3 days. Discretionary uses are a little bit longer, and that's the one I want to talk about, and that's partly because we have a 40-day window to give a decision on a development permit, whether it's discretionary or permitted. With discretionary, we do have to notify the adjacents. There is a 21-day circulation period. Those get a little bit more problematic. Our average meets. I'm not sure how the province is going to ask for these numbers yet, but if we take them on a case-by-case basis, we do have some that exceed the 40-day requirement, and that's just due to the fact that we have MPC only once a month, and we do have a deadline every month that applications have to be in order to get to that next MPC meeting. If they've just missed a deadline, it puts them over the 40 days automatically. And so we've had to, we are going to have to look at how we deal with those going forward. And again, depending on what the province is asking for in our reporting and how they want to see those numbers. We don't leave paper sitting on our desk. Like once we receive it, it's out the door, but it's just that time frame to get it to that next meeting that creates the difficulty for some of those. And then if we look at all types of developments, if we compare both the permitted to discretionary, our averages drop considerably, but ultimately I think with the province and the reducing red tape, they're going to want that 40-day, they're going to want to know how we deal with that 40 days, so the discretionary are going to likely be looked at separately. There. Subdivisions, our days to decision, we have 60 days on a subdivision, and our days to decision have reduced considerably. And I think the reason we don't have the challenge with subdivisions, and they're actually lower than our discretionary use, is when people come in to meet with us, we let them know, here's the deadline, you have to get your application to us by this day. That's the date that sticks in their head, and that's often when they come back in the doors that day we get that application. So we don't wind up with the extra days on those that we would on the discretionary, because the discretionary permits come in all the time, just across the months or across the days of the month. So I think with these, it's just because people have that date in their head and that's the date they aim for. So we do very well on their subdivisions, and so that should be help. The other thing that we are starting to track is development types. So we have grouped a few of these. So you will see that there's been a jump in not only the residential but accessory buildings, quite considerably actually. With the residential developments, this does include second dwellings, it does include the garden suites, so anything that somebody has applied for a residence, we will capture in those numbers. When it comes to the accessory buildings, we're looking at barns, shops, and then, and you can see there's been a jump in those as well. And then home walks stay pretty much the same, where they up and down, but they're pretty level. Businesses, we saw a slight drop in 2019. It's come up a little bit in 2020. But again, this helps us to look at what trends we're seeing, and it also allows us to focus on areas that we want to increase so we can kind of see where we're going. So we have been pulling this information recently. The other thing that I want to touch on that we've never reported before, but it is a key component of our work, is our enforcement activities. Regulatory systems do require both education and an effective enforcement component. So it has to be clear that when necessary, enforcement actions will be taken. But we prefer education and prevention as our number one way to, I guess, reduce the number of enforcements that we have to take. So that is our primary emphasis. And these do take considerable time, anywhere from a month to we've seen them go a couple years, and we've had a couple that have gone through court. So they've taken a couple years in that process. So they are very time consuming. The majority of what we deal with are unauthorized construction, someone building a shop without permits, moving a house in or mobile home without permits. Those are the types of things. So those are some of the things we see. So again, that number has stayed pretty steady since 2018. We run at about 10 files a year that we are really having to deal with. But other than that, most of the comments that I've made are in the report that's attached to your council package, so you will see that more in full. But then that's kind of the summary for us. Any questions?
Thanks, Barb. Are there any questions from council to the planning staff? Councillor Christie.
You just commented that barns and shops, but if they're agriculture buildings, they'll still show up if there's no permit with them?
They will be a shop and they do require a permit. So ag buildings do need a development permit.
And grain storage doesn't.
Yep, they all do. Anything over 200 square feet.
Actual building, but a grain bin doesn't qualify.
Grain bin is exempted. That we have quite a few exemptions actually, but any building structures do need a permit. And we went to, there's not a big fee for them, but we did go to that because we were, first of all, some of the buildings are really large and we want to make sure we keep setbacks in place. Grain bins are our biggest nightmare for setbacks. Everybody wants them as close to the property line and the road as possible. And so those are the ones that we struggle with because they don't need a development permit, but they're still required to meet the setbacks. And that isn't always achieved. But we don't catch them usually until they're there. But yeah, you will, any egg storage, any shops, any of that is captured in that accessory building.
As long as they're over 200 square feet.
Yep.
Okay, that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Kiever.
Yeah, under the safety codes part, Barb, like that fellow out at Delia that fell off a granary, you know, I mean, should he have been, like, would a granary come under what you require for safety code?
No, so that's health and safety, so that's separate. Safety codes are really dealing with your building permits, plumbing, gas, electric. Ag buildings don't need safety code permits. They don't need a building permit, I should say. If they put gas or power in, they do need those permits, but they're not required. However, we do encourage people to still get them because often what we see is they may start off as an egg storage, but then they want to run a business and then they have to get the building permit, and after the fact, it's more costly. So we do encourage people to at least be aware of how they need to construct it if for any reason that use would change. But health and safety would be different than the safety code permits. And grain bins would not need anything. Yeah.
Does council have any other questions for the planning staff? What are council's wishes? Councillor Christie.
I'll make the motion to accept the planning and development statistical summary as information.
Okay, we have a motion before us to accept for information. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing not, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Okay, our next agenda item, 5.1.2, Municipal Planning Commission meeting. Anytime you're ready, Barb.
Okay. Under Bylaw 1721, the Municipal Planning Commission bylaw states under conduct of business that the commission shall hold such meetings as are necessary to fulfill the commission's responsibilities. The Municipal Planning Commission currently holds their meetings on the fourth Thursday of every month, give or take. Council sets these dates and times the Municipal Planning Commission will meet during the annual organizational meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 28th, 2021. We have not received any applications for discretionary use development permit or subdivision that were in time to be considered for this January date. No other applications can be considered as the deadline has now been expired, so we are asking council to move to cancel the January 28th, 2021 Municipal Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hazelton. Is there any discussion to that or questions for the planning staff? If not, what is council's wishes? Councillor King.
I'd make the motion to cancel then the January 28th Municipal Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion before us to cancel the January 28th, 2021 MPC meeting because there's nothing on the agenda. I will call the question. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item, 5.1.3, is to reschedule our public hearing that we were supposed to have today. So anytime you're ready.
Sure. Currently, the Keevers Lake Campground is comprised of 2 separate titles and some improvements which are located within the undeveloped road allowance. Sexsmith Surveys has provided a plan of survey consolidating the road allowance with the 2 separate titles which comprise the Keevers Lake Campground. The public hearing to close the road allowance was scheduled for January 12th, 2021, and due to the recent extended length of time of current COVID-19 provincial restrictions, Kneehill County office remains closed to the public. So we're asking council move to reschedule the public hearing, originally scheduled for January 12th at 10 a.m. to February 9th at 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. That'll give us enough time to advertise, I take it?
Yeah, it's stayed up and we will
Okay.
make sure that it goes back in the paper.
Yeah, okay, very good. Is there any questions from council to the planning staff? What are council's wishes? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I move to reschedule the public hearing originally scheduled for January 12th at 10 a.m. as per section 22 and 230 of the Municipal Government Act to February 9th of 2021 at 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got a motion before us to reschedule the public hearing for February the 9th at 10 a.m. Is there any discussion to that motion prior to the question? Seeing not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelton. Our next agenda item is 5.3.1, Interim Ag Fieldman. Welcome, Lori, and anytime you are ready.
Good morning, Mr. Reeve and members of council, and Happy New Year. I bring forward for you a recommendation to appoint Fallon Sherlock as interim ag fieldman for Kneehill County. A little bit of background on our legislation. So in compliance with the Alberta Ag Service Board Act, Section 8 and subsections 1, 2, and 3 below, the fieldman must be made a designated officer through council. So the first section, if a council has established a board, the council in consultation with the board must appoint a qualified person as an ag fieldman to implement agricultural policies and programs and to manage the agricultural resources of the municipality. The agricultural fieldman shall act as a designated officer of the municipality in carrying out the functions, duties, and powers of the municipality under any act relating to agriculture, and in implementing projects respecting agriculture agreed on between the council and the minister. And finally, an agricultural fieldman is in the municipality employing that fieldman, a municipal inspector under the Weed Control Act, an inspector of the municipality under the Agricultural Pests Act, and a soil conservation officer of the municipality under the Soil Conservation Act. The agricultural fieldman is a required position under the Ag Service Board Act if a municipality has an Ag Service Board and subsequent Ag Service Board grant agreement in place between itself and the province. In the past, the incumbent to the manager Parks and Ag Services position has been appointed by council. However, this position is currently vacant. Once the position is filled, council may consider a permanent employment. Fallon has recently achieved her certified agricultural fieldman and has been working with the Ag Service Department for over 8 years. She brings a strong understanding of the provincial acts and legislative requirements of this interim appointment. So our options are to appoint Fallon Sherlock as interim ag fieldman or to appoint another county staff member.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council to Ms. Watt? Debbie, Councillor Penner.
I don't have any questions for Laurie, but I'd like to make the motion as I feel we have a strong ag department, and Fallon's been part of that for a number of years and continued with her studies. So I'd make the motion that we appoint Fallon Sherlock as our interim ag fieldman for Kneehill County.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion before us to appoint Ms. Fallon Sherlock as interim Ag Service Board member or Ag Service Board fieldman for Kneehill County. Is there any discussion to that motion? Councillor Kiever.
Is there anybody else in the department that would be qualified at this time?
Through the Reeve, Councillor Kiever, no, Fallon is the only one that is certified currently. Our other member of the Parks Department will be certified by the end of this year.
Are there any other questions? Or not questions, but any more discussion? Seeing not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Watt. Our next agenda item is Protective Services Fire Ban Information. Welcome, Ms. Grosfield. Anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Council. Today I'm bringing you some fire ban information that was requested from a past council meeting. So the recommended motion is that council receive the report on fire ban processes as information. A ratepayer question in regards to the ability to set fire bans on certain lands within the county was brought to the council in November. During the discussion, a second question in regards to setting fall fire bans seasonally was put forward as future discussion. So the direction for fire bans comes through our fire protection bylaw, which is 1770, and it's in section 13 in regards to fire bans. For the purpose of fire control, the CAO in consultation with the county fire chief may issue a fire ban for all parts of the county on all county issued fire permits, or to prohibit the lighting or require extinguishing of an outdoor fire. So the ban needs to be published in the media, and the discretion to lift or modify that is with the CAO in consultation with the county fire chief. Fire bans have been historically set in consultation with the other fire chiefs throughout our districts. We have not pursued fire bans in individual parts of the county, and the big reason for that is that it's really difficult to set those boundaries. We put up signage, we have the Alberta Fire Bans website. It's really difficult to just say 1/4 is a fire ban. However, the fire chiefs, we did take this to them for consultation on November 25th, the fire chiefs committee, and they all were in agreement that the process works very well the way it is. Through the fire permitting process year-round, though the fire permitting process is year-round, each fire district guardian they can put whatever conditions they want to on that fire permit when they give it to them. And they can also deny based on the dry areas. We also have mutual aid agreement with Alberta Forestry. And so I did receive clarification on the Crown lands. So Crown lands, we can put a fire ban on. That can be included in our fire ban, but we don't have the authority to issue the fire ban on provincial parks. So the system, in our opinion, works fairly well as is. If there's definitely some changes or something that council would like to make, we can definitely do that. And yeah, we, just as a information, the fire guardians in our area issue about, let's see, about almost 1,800 burn permits a year. So just so you are aware of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Grosfield from council? Councillor Christie.
When we issue a fire ban in the Kneehill County, the parks are identified in it each time then?
No, the provincial parks we don't have authority on, only our own campgrounds.
Probably not. Are there, Councillor King?
So I guess this was brought up basically by a ratepayer in my area who was concerned about dry conditions in the fall. And I guess his concern was that we possibly should have had a fire ban where we didn't. And so my question would relate to how does ratepayers bring forward concerns like that that might impact on whether we put a fire ban in place or not. So what would be the suggested route that I could take back to this individual to say, if you are flagging what you consider to be relatively dry conditions and you'd like a fire ban considered, what's the process they might follow?
Through the Reeve, they can contact us and we can look at all those conditions. At the time that ratepayer had called all of us, we were, I guess, days away from having snow. And again, the fire ban was for the entire county, right? And so we do understand that there was long grass where he is specifically talking about. But yeah, that is the process. They could definitely email us and we can take a look at it. And it's the discretion of the CAO and the fire chief to make that together. But like I said, usually we do consult the rest of the fire guardians as well.
Okay, so, well, thank you for that. I guess I will go back to this specific ratepayer and I'll clarify that with them. But just to be clear then, the process would be if there's a concern, if they want to raise that concern, then the process is to contact the county and then the decision will be made whether it's worth going ahead or not.
Through the Reeve, that's correct, Councillor King. This is the first fall in many, many years that we actually haven't put on a ban. So we usually do put on a fire ban in the spring and in the fall. Just this is kind of an exceptional year that we just didn't put that in place. So for whatever reason.
Are there any other questions from council? What are council's wishes? Councillor King.
I guess, again, since this was my question raised, I will move that we receive the report on fire ban process as information.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got a motion before us to receive for information. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing as not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thanks, Deb. Okay, our next agenda item is 6.1, short-term borrowing bylaw. It's our annual bylaw for our line of credit. Welcome, Mr. McKinnon, and anytime you are ready.
Oh, sorry. I'm turned on now. So again, just to recap, as the Reeve has indicated, annually council does approve a short-term borrowing bylaw. This county, to my knowledge, has not used that authority for at least 10 years and probably longer. The county has adequate cash flows to manage its cash needs during the course of the year. The only reason that it's good to put in place is we do have a banking agreement. Our current banking agreement requires this bylaw be put in place to meet the requirements of our financial institution, but it's not anticipated that we would be utilizing the line of credit. Again, the line of credit is 2.5 million, and this is bylaw reflects that aggregate amount. And again, it's not anticipated, excuse me, that we'll draw on this line of credit. And if we do, there's adequate funds within the 2021 proposed operating budget to manage the temporary draws, if any, but likely there will be no draws.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Are there any questions from council to Bill? No, you must have explained it very well. What are council's wishes? Councillor Christie.
I'll make the motion that we give first reading to bylaw 1830, that's being a bylaw to authorize the short-term borrowing of funds from time to time as they be necessary to meet the financial obligations of Kneehill County.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion before us to give first reading to bylaw 1830. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Anyone care to make second reading?
I so move we give second reading to bylaw 1830.
Okay, we have a motion to give second reading to bylaw 1830. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Someone want to give consent for third? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I'd like to have council give unanimous consent for third and final reading of bylaw 1830.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? And that is unanimous consent for third reading, or unanimous consent to give third reading. Does someone want to? Councillor King.
Make the motion for third reading.
Okay, thank you. Now we have motion to give third reading to bylaw 1830. Last chance. Any discussion? Seeing not, call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Our next agenda item is investment policy. 16-7. Anytime you're ready.
Again, through the Reeve, at this meeting held on November 17th, the Committee of the Whole reviewed in depth this policy, asked numerous questions reflecting the basis of the policy and the fundamentals behind the policy. As council is well aware, the administration reviews all our policies on a review cycle and brings back amendments, changes, enhancements, as the case may be. This is the intent of this update to the investment policy. Again, as was articulated at the Committee of the Whole, This policy is based on the Government Financial Officers Association's best practices. It's similar to other municipalities of nature of Kneehill County, and it's in full compliance with the MGA and incorporates some enhanced features to deal with investment of municipal funds. This is particularly important in a time when we're at historically low interest rates. So the financial implications of the policy, again, this will enhance the reporting to council and the public in regards to the financial management of the municipality. And as I've already stated, it will comply with all the legislative requirements under the MGA. One of the new things that has been incorporated in the policy is the reporting of benchmarking related to our rates of return. So how are we doing relative to the market? So that will be enhanced and incorporated into the quarterly reporting that council receives in relation to the financial indicators and measures that are reported to council on a quarterly basis. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Are there any questions for Mr. McKinnon from council? Okay, does not look that way. Does someone care to make a motion? Councillor Christie.
I'll make the motion to current policy of 16-7 titled Investments dated June 27, 2017 be deleted and updated to investment policy 16-7 dated January 12th, 2021 be adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion before us to delete policy 16-7 dated June the 27th of 2017 and update it to investment policy 16-7 dated January 12th, 2021. Is there any discussion to that motion prior to a question? Okay, don't see any discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thanks, Mr. McKinnon. I've been requested for a short recess, so we will recess at 9:28. And our next agenda item is 8.1, Rural Community Hall Policy 15-13. You're presenting, Mr. Hogan?
I am.
Anytime you're ready.
Okay. So as council is aware, hall funding is determined by policy, and the policy outlines that the funding is supplied based on the usage of the hall as determined by rentals. We brought this item forward to you today for consideration. Given the past year that we've had, the COVID restrictions, the limitations on gathering, a number of these places have not been able to rent out their halls. So if we go strictly by the policy for funding this year, many of them are going to see reductions in their funding because they will not have met the thresholds outlined in the policy. And what we're suggesting in light of the restrictions that have been placed on not just the last few months, but most of 2020, that we simply maintain the funding at current levels for the 2021 year that they received previously, just in anticipation that their rentals are going to be much lower, and we'll drop a number of these halls into lower funding brackets through no fault of their own.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. Are there any questions from council to Mr. Hogan? What are council's wishes? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I think our rural community halls are very important, and I certainly don't want them to be suffering. So I would like to recommend that we direct administration for the 2021 budget year to provide the same funding level that was provided to the rural community halls listed in policy 15-13 in 2020.
Okay, we have a motion before us to keep the funding at the same level. Is there any discussion to that motion prior to the question? Seeing not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Our next agenda item is 8.2, Rural Development Network. Welcome, Ms. Buchanan. And anytime you're ready.
Good morning, Reeve Council. Today, I'm presenting to you a request for a letter of support for the Rural Development Network, Rural Immigration Central Alberta. This was a project that we were originally going to do a joint letter of support with the town of Trochu. However, the way our timelines worked out over Christmas, we're going to be submitting them separately, so you'll see a change on the screen to how we're going to do the motion as well. On December 21st, 2020, Kneehill County and the town of Trochu received an invitation from Central Alberta Economic Partnership, the Rural Development Network, and Assist to participate in the Rural Development Network Rural Immigration Project for Central Alberta. The program provides training for organizations and private industry in the region to better support newcomers, creating a healthier ecosystem for foreign workers. The objectives of the program are to increase capacity of rural Alberta communities to effectively support newcomers, immigrants, and refugees in their community, increase resources for unique needs of rural organizations and newcomers, connect with an Edmonton-based, and they have actually added a Red Deer-based organization as well to provide settlement services to fill gaps offered by what we have for local supports that can all be done virtually, as well as to provide information on what local services are available to our newcomer population. Essentially, if this program goes through, the beneficiary will be 2 to 3 communities that partner together on this project. Kneehill County and the town of Trochu have been working together with the Rural Development Network to potentially implement this program jointly. This program, when we reviewed it, is important to both of us because we do have some processing facilities in this region that rely on the newcomer population, and those facilities are struggling attracting and retaining those employees. The Rural Development Network has requested a letter of support expressing interest in this program. And under the policy 11.2, letter of support, this request needs a motion from council to approve. Now, unfortunately, the time frame of this request, as we got it December 22nd, And this organization was intending to submit their grant on January 8th. They were going to try and put it off till this week if they could. So essentially what we did is we submitted a letter to them, indicated that we are interested in the program, noting that council will be presented on January 12th. If approved by motion of council, the letter of support will follow. So it may not at this point assist them in making their grant application. However, once their application is received, the follow-up question is often, they may be asked for that letter of support, they'll have it in hand. The town of Trochu has submitted their support letter at this time. The grant essentially that the Rural Development Network is applying for is a community capacity for newcomer integration. The grant supports the capacity building of small centers in rural areas to attract, welcome, and retain immigrant entrepreneurs and newcomers to the area. The grant would be 100% funded. Further, the Rural Development Network would actually be the grant holder. So Kneehill County would not have the grant in their name, nor would we be holding any of the reporting on it. Due to the short turnaround on this request, if when funding is received for this program, Kneehill County and the town of Trochu still has the ability to reach out to the greater region to see if anybody else is interested in working on this project with us. The participating communities would have a representative sit on their advisory committee, essentially attend advisory meetings, identify stakeholders and service providers and organizations in the community, discuss the top gaps, needs of the community in terms of newcomer support, help promote the training sessions for service providers. Members of the advisory committee are also welcome to attend any of the sessions provided. Provide support in reviewing the toolkit creation to help distribute within the community. So to clarify, if we participate in this program, and by us signing this letter of support, it's not in any way obligating us to participate, it's simply allowing them to get the grant, putting us on the list for them to reach out and say, hey, do you guys still want to do this? We will be participating in training. However, the entire function of this program is to basically bring together other organizations in the community and provide them the training support required to fill the gaps in basically our immigration programs in the region. As I indicated, the grant deadline is technically January 31st. They were intending to submit by January 8th. So essentially what we're asking at this time is if council supports this program, if they're willing to sign a letter of support towards the grant program. Questions, comments?
Okay, thank you very much, Jacqueline. So as the motion appears in our RFD, we would remove the word joint and with the town of Trochu, is that correct? So it would just be a letter coming from us?
Correct. So the new motion would read, Council directs administration to sign a letter of support for use of the Rural Development Network and application of the Community Capacity for Newcomers in Integration Grant.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from council to Ms. Buchanan? Okay, doesn't look like it. What are council's wishes? Oh, Councillor Hugo, can you hear us?
No, what are we talking? Are we talking about the RDN?
Yes, yes, we are.
Oh, okay, nay.
We haven't made a motion yet, but,
Okay, a quick question, isn't this just a doubling of the services that are already out there? Like, why do we need to get involved with something? I already see a lot of other social organizations and actually, churches already involved in this. What, is this just a doubling of the services?
anybody want to take that one on? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Buchanan.
Through the Reeve, in reviewing our community, there really is no formal programs offered. So we do have Woodland Immigration that provides essentially paperwork and application services. And though we have organizations in the community that do their best to support where they can, we really are lacking the capacity and training to do that as effectively as possible. So essentially what this is training for those organizations that are currently working on it. So it's less of a duplication of effort and more improving the capacity of those organizations to support newcomer populations.
Okay, does,
Is there anyone else other than the town of Torrington that they approached Kneehill, Acme, Farnden, any of these other small urban municipalities in Kneehill County?
Through the REEV, as indicated, no, we had not, because the request was issued on December 22nd. Assuming the funding is received, we've already verified that we will have the opportunity to reach out to the rest of our region with this request as well. Overall, it's something, if we can work on it as a region and have everybody work on it combined, we're going to be able to do a much more effective job of increasing the capacity for this program.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hugo?
Basically, yes, thank you.
Okay. What are council's wishes? Deputy Reeve McGee.
As someone who's worked in areas where this was very lacking, I see a huge value in this. So, and this motion doesn't go any further than just saying that we would agree to see that as a positive thing. We haven't committed to anything beyond that. And so I think it's pretty easy for me to suggest that I make the motion to direct administration to sign a letter of support for use by the Rural Development Network in application of the community capacity for newcomer integration grant, please.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion before us for a letter of support. Is there any discussion to that motion prior to the question? Okay, I don't see any discussion, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Buchanan. Okay, next agenda item, 8.3, Kneehill Partnership. Mr. Hogan, you taking this one?
I will, yes.
Anytime you're ready.
As council is aware, the Kneehill Regional Partnership has recently updated its terms of reference, and as part of its responsibilities, it is tasked with asking the member municipalities for their suggestions, their ideas, or their desires in terms of regional explorations that they want the group to look into or pursue. These are, of course, aimed at delivering regional services or finding regional efficiencies for the benefit of taxpayers. As we go through that process, the partnership has sent out correspondence to each of the member municipalities asking for their ideas, for their contributions to that partnership. As we're aware from the terms of reference, the Kneehill Regional Partnership will gather all of those ideas, and then the task is upon them to prioritize them in the order they'd like to explore them. So one of the things to remember here, or the notes, is that we've tasked the committee with that. So what is a top priority for one member may not be the top priority for the committee. So the committee has structured their terms of reference that way, and they were approved that way as a way of mitigating disputes before they arise. From our perspective, administration is recommending a couple of projects or things for consideration by council. Council is free, of course, if there are other regional partnerships you'd like to explore, to add them to the list, and we will forward them on to the Kneehill Regional Partnership as appropriate. The two that we're recommending are a regional marketing and tourism campaign. So this would, in the short version, this would be the exploration of, call it a regional brand or a regional thrust when it comes to marketing and tourism. We do some of this already, so it's just kind of stepping that up a little bit and working with the other municipalities for a joint effort. The second is a review of the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Task Force. So this is already on the committee's agenda. But I think, given past discussion, it's something that council wanted to see as well. The original conversation in front of the Kneehill Regional Partnership was actually forwarded to them by the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Task Force when they requested a change to their terms of reference. This is simply a continuation of the discussion as brought forward by that committee. And so we're recommending that it be put on the list so that we can ensure that the committee looks at it in relation to their other projects as well and prioritizes it accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. Are there any questions? Any additional partnership exploration issues? What are council's wishes? Councillor King.
I would, based on the recommendation, I would make the motion that we submit the following initiatives to the Kneehill Regional Partnership as options for exploring regionalization or regional partnerships, and that being the regional marketing and tourism campaign and the review of the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Task Force.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion before us as presented on the screen. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as not, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Our next agenda item, 8.4, would be the training partnerships. Mr. Hogan.
Through you, Reeve, this item is a follow-up to the previous item. In addition to providing exploration opportunities, one of the responsibilities tasked to the regional partnership is to develop regional training opportunities. So for elected officials primarily, but for potentially senior staff as well. And again, following the same method, is the partnership is canvassing its members to determine what interest or what desires there are out there for training. So as elected officials, if you see areas that you feel would be well served to gain additional knowledge in, that's what the committee is asking for, so that they can take that information and they can put together, they can look at who might deliver such sessions, how they might be delivered. They can put together a training plan given their budgetary resources and essentially have a plan to put that in place so that administratively we can start to contact or organize the entities that we need to in order to make it happen. So again, we've got a couple that as administration we've put on the agenda for council consideration. As council, you are of course free to add or remove as you see fit to put in there. The two that we have outlined are prospective councillor training. This is an item that we're putting out there for council's consideration. This would, in the short version, potentially entail I don't want to use the word campaign, but a session or an information drive. As we all know, we have municipal elections coming up in October, is putting it perhaps a formal session together or whatever that drive looks like to give people an idea of what being on council entails, what the requirements of it in terms of the time commitment, what types of things council discusses, how they go about their business, and providing people with some of that insight or opportunity prior to the election itself. And looking at that as potentially something that could be delivered regionally as opposed to just one of the members doing that. The second one is purchasing law. There's a couple different ways that this could play out. One is a session aimed at elected officials regarding various pieces of legislation or purchasing law that are out there that as municipalities we're bound by. So these are things like the Canada Free Trade Agreement, the New West Partnership Agreement, entities like that, and what they mean for how we have to conduct business. As well, there could be a follow-up or a combined session with some senior staff that outlining some of the more detailed elements of those legislation, such as more in-depth procurement law, what we need to, some of the new requirements that have come out under Canada Free Trade, elements like that. As I said, these are only recommendations from administration. You're free to add, remove, as you see fit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. Did I hear you correctly? Were you talking the prospective counselor training is being prior to, or is it post-election?
So the regional partnership is already tasked with conducting a regional orientation after the general election. So that was specifically outlined in the terms of reference. There is still discussion in the partnership as to exactly how that will occur. What we're recommending in here would kind of be an information night prior to the election so that anybody thinking of running for council would have an opportunity to gain some insight or knowledge as to the time commitment they're possibly signing up for, council's roles versus administration's roles, or some of those backgrounds that traditionally we have covered in the orientation, but throughout the province we find a number of people find themselves on council and then start learning what the job is. So this wouldn't be an in-depth thing, but perhaps, like I said, an information session one night that if people were thinking of running, they could have a better idea of what they were potentially signing up for.
Okay, thank you very much. I imagine everybody else knew what you were talking about. I just kind of maybe missed it. But thank you for that explanation. What are council's wishes? Are there any questions? Or are there any other training partnerships that anyone would like to suggest? Okay, does not look like it. So what are council's wishes here? Deputy Reeve McGee.
I'd like to make the motion that council submit the following initiatives to the Kneehill Regional Partnership as options for exploring regionalization or regional partnerships with prospective councillor training, and secondly, purchasing law.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got a motion before us as on the screen. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing not, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. 9.1 Stars Ambulance. I guess we did make a motion at the end of the presentation, but just to keep the agenda going here, let's Mr. Hogan, anything to add?
Nothing.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion to receive the presentation for information? Again, Councillor King.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor?
Yay.
Carried unanimously. Okay, our next agenda item is 10.1. Council committee reports. We have one, Kneehill Regional FCSS. Any questions? Comments? Motions? Councillor King.
Make a motion to receive the council and committee reports for information.
Okay, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor?
Yay.
And that's carried unanimously. We have our council follow-up action list. Any questions, concerns, comments? Counselor Christie.
I'll make the motion to receive for information the council follow-up action list as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to receive as presented. All those in favor?
Okay.
And that is carried unanimously. That brings us to the end of our open session. Does anybody want a break before we go into closed? Does not look like it. Would somebody like to move us into closed session for FOIPS section 16, 17, 21, and 25? Councillor King.
I'd make that motion to move us into closed session.
Okay, motion's been made to move us into closed session. All those in favor?
Yay.
Carried unanimously. Okay, we are in closed session.